Hello, everybody. I am here today to talk about what I had mentioned in the last two videos, and that was my unexpected trip to the hospital. It was on June 30th, and I woke up that day just not feeling well, just not feeling myself. And I remember feeling extremely cold. I had the chills, and it was the hottest day of the year, and I just couldn't warm up. So I decided at one point that maybe if I went outside and sat on the steps, that maybe I would warm up from the heat of the sun. It worked a little bit, but not too much. And I wound up going into my car thinking that it would be even hotter in the car, and I was not going to put the air conditioner on. When I got in the car, after sitting there for a few minutes, I thought I would take a ride. I decided to go to McDonald's. I decided to get an orange juice, thinking that maybe I needed sugar. And I got myself a large Diet Coke because I thought perhaps hydrating, and I know that's not the way to hydrate, but that was kind of my thought process at the time. I thought to myself, I was near the hospital just in case I didn't feel well. It was right there, so I thought it was a good idea if I parked for a while. Problem was there was no place to park anywhere near the hospital. So I wound up driving home, and I was so cold when I was driving home that I was literally shaking, visibly shaking. And I thought if anybody saw me, they would think that I was having some kind of a seizure because it was that pronounced. Got back home, and I went upstairs with my 2 drinks, and I walked in the front door, and I remember thinking, I better leave the door unlocked because at that time nobody had a key to my house. And I thought, in case anything is really wrong, at least somebody can get into the house without breaking my door down. So ultimately, that's what I did. I think something just bit me. And I wound up getting into bed. I put on a winter coat. I got under the blankets, and I fell asleep. I do remember hearing something at some point during the process, but it was vague, it was almost like I was in a dreamlike state. And I do remember trying to lift my body to get up to respond to whoever it was who was ringing my bell or banging on my door. I don't remember exactly what it was. So I tried that a few times, and I did hear those sounds a few times. I couldn't get up. I would make it up maybe a third of the way, and it was just so much effort trying to lift my body up that I would fall back again, and ultimately I fell asleep again. The next thing I was aware of was people standing in my house, and what had happened, I heard later from Linda, was that she knew I wasn't feeling well that morning, and she had tried to reach me several times and couldn't, so she decided to take a ride past my house to see if my car was in the driveway. Figuring if my car was not in the driveway, I had gone somewhere and that was fine. But my car was in the driveway. She automatically came to the back of the house and tried to get in, and she couldn't get in. So she, at that point, decided to go to my neighbor Nikki's house and to see if she still had my key, which she did not. And the reason she didn't have my key was I needed to make a copy of it, so I had kept it at that point, and I hadn't returned it to her yet. So I know they were standing there. At one point, Nikki said to me, who am I? Or I think they were EMTs in the house at that point, and they may have said, who is this? And I said, oh, this is my wonderful neighbor. And I could not conjure up her name, just couldn't. So I knew something was wrong. Ultimately, they insisted on taking me to the hospital. I guess they must have done a blood sugar on me, and they found that my sugar was 248, and they said no, they wanted to take me to the hospital. So I asked them if they would take me to Winthrop Hospital, which is a place I've been to before. And I thought that if I had to go to a hospital, that was where I wanted to be. They said no, they couldn't do it because it was too far away. It was at that point, too close to rush hour, and they really needed to take me to a closer hospital. They wound up taking me over to Nassau University Medical Center, which is just in the next town. And I had really had terrible feelings about that place. Years ago, it was a different name, and it has since changed hands, but I always thought of it as the old hospital, and it was a place that I just did not want to go. I was upset with Linda that she had called 911, and I really did not want to go to the hospital. Ultimately, I was in the emergency room, and they had a wonderful emergency room. They had all separate cubicles that were glass enclosed or plexiglass or whatever it was. So it was nice because you were in a totally separate space, certainly with the concerns, even though it was later in the COVID process, there was still that concern. So it was nice being in a separate space. I was in there for hours and hours and hours. And that night, they finally decided to admit me. I think what they thought, they had done all kinds of blood work, and my blood work apparently was not good. My values were off in a lot of areas, and one of the things that, they weren't sure. They thought there was some kind of an issue. Some muscle was being damaged, and they were concerned that it was my heart. So they had me on the cardiac floor, and they had me monitored for 24 hours or more to see if it was my heart. So I had the whole cardiology group there, and it's a teaching hospital, so there must have been 10 people in my bed all the time. They wound up moving me ultimately from the cardiac floor down to the medicine floor, and they had wanted to start me on 80 milligrams of Lipitor. And I said, no, I'm not going to take that. And they said, well, there are studies that have shown that starting Lipitor early, if you haven't had a heart attack, can help prevent the heart attack. And I said, 80 milligrams of Lipitor is, no, it's just way too high a dosage, and I refused to take it. I said, let's wait and see when the results of another test was coming in. So I didn't let them do it. And they said, as long as you understand what the risks are, it's your right to do that. It turned out, I found out, that in addition to a lot of the other values being off, they had done my creatinine kinase test. And normal in a woman, I think, is up to 200, something like that. Mine had gone up to about 4,500, which showed that something was happening. They said that some muscle was being damaged, and they didn't want it damaged to the point where, I don't know if it was the point of no return, but it was a serious issue. So they kept taking it. And they ultimately, what they found, they sent me for all kinds of tests. They found out ultimately what I had was cellulitis. My right leg, it was the leg that was damaged, with the surgery and the loss of the femoral nerve and the loss of my lymph nodes in the leg at, where the tumor had been. So the leg was huge, it was bright red, and it was hot. They were afraid of a DVT, so they sent me down for a test for that. And then I didn't understand at the time, but they sent me down for a test that was an x-ray of my leg. And what they did was they x-rayed my hip, my knee, my ankle. They took all kinds of x-rays of those areas, and I thought, did they think I broke my leg in all those places? I didn't realize what they were checking. They just wanted to make sure that there was no damage to any of that. And it turned out that that came back negative. So that was good news. They had me, to make a long story short, and it's a very long story, I was in the hospital for 8 days. When they found out about my cellulitis, it was bad, and they had me on 2 heavy-duty antibiotics intravenously. They had me on vancomycin, and they had me on another one. It began with an ATREO something, I think. And they had to keep checking my blood every 2 days to make sure that I wasn't toxic from the vancomycin. So it was a little bit of a scary time, and being on the IV drip the whole time and having the antibiotics. What they did was, when they finally said it was time for me to go home, because the highest that my creatinine kinase got to, that I'm aware of, was 6,100, and they were very worried about it. But ultimately, it apparently was from the cellulitis, and once the antibiotics started to work, and it took days for it to start to work, once it did, it started to come down. At the end of the 8 days, it was back to normal, and my other blood values were more or less back to normal. My blood sugars during the whole time were terrible, and I've been borderline diabetic, but not on any kind of medication, and not anything where I've needed to take anything before this. The whole time that I was in there, it was really high. My cardiologist told me afterwards that happens when you're sick, and that's something that can happen, and it was all part of that process. So it was a little bit alarming. They gave me, the phone is ringing. It rings every time I make a video. So they were going to send me home. They wanted to put in a PICC line because they wanted me to give myself intravenous medications when I went home. Not intravenous, I guess it was push. I don't know what they call it. In any case, they wanted me to take care of this line, and I was terrified of it. I was afraid. Oh, I'm freaking out. I'm either breaking out in hives or something bit me while I was outside. I had called up. They told me that the medication that I needed to take, and I think I don't remember if it was 1 antibiotic or 2, after Medicare, I guess it was, would pay for their portion of it, but certainly the insurance portion. It was going to cost me $640 a week. I said, I can't do it. And I really was not feeling comfortable with my ability to do it right so that I didn't have to worry about another infection forming. So ultimately what they did was they just put me on an oral dose of, what was it? They put me on an oral antibiotic. So I learned a lot of things when I was in the hospital. I think one of the biggest things for me was, number one, I was wrong about that hospital. I got excellent care there. I had a number of different groups of doctors. I had medicine, I had infectious disease, and I had cardiology all working on my case. And they were very thorough in everything that they did to try to make sure that I wound up getting better from this. So I'm very grateful for that. I had most of the people that I dealt with there, the nurses, the aides, everybody was so nice, so wonderful, and so caring. that it was really a pleasure. There was only one nurse on one shift who chose to misunderstand everything I said. She was argumentative, and she was making my life miserable, and I was frightened enough dealing with what I was going through. So what I learned was, and I've learned this lesson before, if you are in a position where you take care of people who are ill or who have an issue, whether it's a psychological issue or a physical issue, or just going through a tough time, be kind, because you just don't know what a difference it makes to them. It's very hard to go through this kind of thing, and you really need all the help that you can get. So as I say, that was really very, very surprising. Excuse me. It was just very surprising to me. When I left there, they had me make an appointment for a follow-up visit, and they told me to go see my cardiologist, which I did. And thank God, it took a little while for me to feel really better, but I finally did, and I wound up getting, I had asked for glucose testing equipment so that I could test my own glucose and make sure everything's okay. But once again, the reason that I'm putting this out is not so much to tell you what happened, but it's to tell you, just in case there's anybody out there who sees this now or in the future, if you don't feel well, don't ignore what your body's telling you. I've said this before. I didn't do it myself. I really didn't, because I kept thinking I would tough it out and I would be better. But if your body is telling you something and you don't feel well, listen and make sure you do something about it. Also, be grateful for the people you have in your life who are there for you and help you get through the tough times. So all of that, you know, these are lessons that come back time and time again. I also learned some more medical information than I had before. I also was told that because of the surgery and because of what I had gone through, I could be susceptible to cellulitis again. They said even from a bug bite, can be from anything. So I need to be very careful, and as my doctor told me, just be sure that if you don't feel well or you see something different, go to a doctor, get an antibiotic right away so that you can take care of it, because this was a serious infection and I might have done myself harm. I don't want that to happen to any one of you. If you don't feel like you normally feel, or you feel that there's something going on in your body that is not right, and you know in the pit of your stomach, check it out. Don't make the mistakes that I made. So that's my story. And as I say, thank God I'm feeling a whole lot better now. And I am just trying to get about the business of my life as I still go through the undulating curves of this crazy, crazy life I'm living at the moment. I know a lot of you would like to have more of an update on what went on with me during the period of time that I wasn't here. And I will get to that. I will do what I can to tell you what I've been through. But some of it was tough in the sense that I'm usually pretty much in control of my life, and I was not in any way, and it made it very difficult. I also went through having to lose Milo, and that was devastating to me. That was last October. It was actually October 11th. And he died at home in the middle of the night, and it was horrible. It was horrible for me, and it was horrible for the other two dogs. And God bless him, because I know he's at the Rainbow Bridge, and one day I will see him again, along with the other four-legged loves that I've had in my life. So on that note, I'm going to say take care, and I will be back very soon. I tried to do the video of the staging, and unfortunately it was a little bit too dark, so it was hard to do. I'm going to try to go back there tomorrow and see if I can do it again. I'm going to have to do it soon because we're going to be breaking the staging down. So if I want to show it to you, I'm going to have to do it really soon. And as I say, I will see you soon. Thank you so much once again for just coming back and spending time with me. Take care, everybody. Love you.